Good morning and welcome to the Reckoning Brothers Afternoon Tea podcast. Josh, how are you doing this morning/afternoon?
Doing well. How are you, Scott?
I am doing well. And in case anyone wonders why I say good morning, welcome to afternoon tea, it's this little thing called time zones. Josh and I are in different time zones and the world
As of
spins.
as of 3 minutes ago, it's
Well, the
afternoon
world
for
well, the
me.
world's actually flat, so it's a little bit more complicated. So the world is flat, and the sun goes around it. But because we're on different places on the flat Earth, it hits daytime at different times, right? Do you follow me? So we have these
Are
things
you
called
talking to
time
me?
zones.
Because it's like I don't follow you.
You're the only one here. You're the only one here. And you know why I'm bitching about time zones though?
Why?
Because it's fucking the bad daylight savings time was last night, and I hate it with a passion
It
that we
was
still have
last
daylight
night,
savings.
wasn't it? So are we supposed
Yeah,
to roll back or
it's the bad one where you go forward and you lose an
okay?
hour. That shit's
I'd
evil,
like
man. We
to.
shouldn't be doing it.
Okay, so actually, Trump was asked a question about this about eliminating this daylight savings time thing. Did you hear this answer?
No, 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 no. Tell me.
So he goes, well, it's 50-50. Some people like it earlier, and they like to have light when they're taking their kids to school, and some people like it later. And so he's like, we're if it's 50-50, what do you do about that? So
You,
nothing.
this is like a trolley problem kind of thing, right? So we're
Yeah.
forcing this time switch, right? So we're doing that where we could just be doing nothing and it would still work itself out the same way. You know, we'd
Yep.
still have that split, but I wouldn't have to fucking change my sleep patterns, every 6 months.
Right.
And neither would anybody else. I think it should go
I
away.
like I like the more light
I
longer in
like
the
more
day.
I like more light in the morning. So hey, we're proving
Yeah.
Trump's point right there.
There it is.
Josh, do you
Yes.
know what the word Schadenfreude means?
No, but it sounds German.
It is German. It's a German word and it means the pleasure derived from the misfortune of others.
Oh, is that what we're
So
talking
that's
about today?
yeah, a little bit. So
Okay.
you actually, if your enemy or someone you don't like suffers, have you had that feeling? Even though it's a dark feeling, even though it's not something to be proud of, I think we've all experienced that, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm not
I
proud of it.
no.
I probably
I
experience it a lot. A lot. There's a lot of these dark feelings that are inside of all of us. And the question I had is how appropriate is it to accept these dark negative feelings versus rejecting them and trying to actively force ourselves to not have them?
well, I don't think it's appropriate for anybody to repress feelings at all, ever. Um, I think it's appropriate to not display them. Uh,
Mm.
I think I think one of the examples I would have with this, in, having dark feelings is when Republicans win,
Mm.
and the liberals are crybabies about it. But I'm not a boaster. Is that
Yeah, so you're more of the you're gonna laugh at a libs of TikTok video of someone melting down and crying in their car because Trump lost because it's so ridiculous. But
but
you're
I'm
not
not going to
gonna
go out and point fingers at him and say ha ha ha.
yeah, yeah. If you see somebody in your real life in front of you, you're not gonna be like, "Oh, stupid bitch, how's it feel to lose? Ha ha ha." Y-
I,
you're not gonna
I,
gloat.
maybe a little bit.
You're saying
there's a there's
actually
a
you caught me.
Democratic headquarters right down the road from me, and I just went by blaring my horn. But yeah, that's
So
not
you're saying
not
you
not
do the opposite of what you said you didn't do. Got it. Got it.
yeah, correct,
Understood.
correct.
100%. So when I was talking to Claude about this,
Oh,
um,
what did Claude have to
he,
say?
yeah, I think of him as a man. I don't know why. Probably because his name is Claude. He brought up four good ethical dilemmas, and one of them is what you just said: emotional autonomy. right? So we have limited control over our emotional responses, right? And we talked about this before. Do we have free will? The most of us, what makes us us, is actually below the surface. We only have about 10% view of what our mind actually is. So, having limited control over our emotional responses, if we force feelings or force rejected feelings, that can lead to repression rather than actual growth forward. That's kind of Claude's approach. And it makes intuitive sense to me.
Yeah, it
It doesn't
does.
make sense to not feel your feelings or to pretend they're not there. It seems like then you're not going to get a full view of yourself. You're just like, oh no, I don't have those feelings. I don't have those feelings. But in reality, we're all creatures of evolution, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't have a whole lot of that just negative, violent, nasty human nature shit inside of us.
I don't think anybody can say that they've never had that feeling. Anybody.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's the other thing he brought up, authenticity versus performance. So, is feigning grief when you don't feel a form of emotion? So the example I brought up to him is, what if somebody you don't like dies and you don't care because you don't like them? I've had this feeling before. There's someone acquaintance, not someone I knew well, just a total fucking bitch, died too young, in her 50s, of cancer. And that, on one hand, it sucks for her family. I do legitimately feel bad. But on the other hand, I didn't really care because I don't fucking like her, so I didn't really give a shit. And because your emotional bandwidth is only so long. And I I'm not going to feel bad if I don't give a shit about something I don't give a shit about. I'm too old, right? It's just like, hey, I wouldn't wish death upon anybody, but don't force me to care when someone I just don't give a shit about dies.
Yeah.
And I remember dealing with this at the time, like, oh man, I was like, everyone else is probably feeling the exact same shit. They're just probably fucking lying. But what Claude says is that a part of maintaining social cohesion? Because I, of course, lied to everybody too and said, yo, that's sad. Da, 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 da. It's not that it wasn't sad, because in the abstract, of course it was. And like her family members and everything, I do legitimately feel bad for her. But feigning this grief, it's emotional dishonesty on one hand, but do we need it to maintain social cohesion? What do you think?
I don't think we need it. No. I
Mm.
I think it just comes naturally, where some people legitimately do feel some type of empathy. But feigning it is that's a difficult question.
Is all the radical honesty movements, like I think Abraham Maslow, the Maslow hierarchy of needs guy, was one of these people. He had like there's this awesome documentary I'm probably mentioned a million times called The Century of the Self by Adam Curtis. It was a BBC documentary, I think around 2000, but I could be getting that wrong. He talks about Abraham Maslow and how he used to have like these retreats based on just radical honesty, where you just don't lie, right? You just come across as a fucking prick and an asshole. You don't lie to other people and you don't lie to yourself. The documentary viewed this as is not really being successful. He kind of came to the conclusion we more or less kind of have to lie. So I don't know. I just thought that
That's
was
interesting.
interesting. But it is
You go
tough,
back
though.
to
It's really tough.
social cohesion. I think people that do it do it to fit in.
Well, 100% they do it to fit in, or yeah. You don't want to come across as an asshole. You don't want to come across as heartless for
Yeah.
easily
Or even if you
reg-
do, it's just to feel like you're part of the group.
yeah,
So,
yeah, you go on to get along, right?
hmm
So there are some philosophical and spiritual traditions that stress that even though it might be indifferent to our natural response, right? We should make efforts to expand our circle of concern, even to people that we don't like. So make that the bandwidth for our empathy expand, and people that we don't like, people that are enemies, are within that.
why should we make efforts to expand our circle of concern?
So I guess it'd be to make us better people. And just, we don't know people's journeys, right? I mean, people that we have that are our enemies, they're, what did they really do wrong? They're also a victim of circumstance, just like everybody else. They're only responsible for so much. If we actually fully understood a person's story, we would probably have a really hard time thinking as negatively about them as we do if we don't know their story.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's important. I think it really is important.
But,
And us.
I mean,
So
literature is so important. You can envision yourself in another person's body or another person's mindset just by watching film or reading a book about them. So,
oh, exactly. That's why part of the reason why actual old school classical literature is so important, because it was
yeah.
so good at that. All the Dostoevsky type shit like Crime and Punishment and The Idiot and all that stuff. It really just it dealt with getting inside somebody's head that was doing some nasty shit, right? And it it makes you feel some kind of way about the world that you wouldn't have otherwise. Um, I like this idea, the what Claude calls the cultivation of compassion. Sam Harris, he has a meditation app that I like, and sometimes on this app he'll do this thing called loving kindness meditation, where in a nutshell, you envision somebody that you might not like, and you picture good things happening to that person, and you try to focus on actually feeling happy for them when
Ooh,
we experience this stuff. It's an interesting exercise.
that
It's
is
part of meditation that he does.
that is interesting.
It is. So,
I
I
would
say
find it difficult.
it can be really difficult, but it's an interesting exercise. I've done it many times listening to the app. And I think it's important. I mean, I say all these things like, and I agree with you. You shouldn't feel bad about feeling these emotions. You should feel them. They are real and they are a part of you, and that just is what it is. But it's also good to develop compassion towards people you might not like. Both of these things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
There's one more philosophical issue Claude brought up: respect for human dignity. There's an argument that basic respect for human life calls for some acknowledgement of, like in the death example, some acknowledges of loss, even if you don't feel the deep grief. So just respecting a human being,
Yeah.
right?
That one I can get on board with. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of we've talked about Twitter, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of I'm glad he's dead or whatever. He was the worst person in the world. Blah blah blah. But there's just there's that dignity that come on, it's it's over. It's done. Get over it.
we talked
Now
with Mark about
it's not
Luigi.
Hitler, Luigi
Yeah,
Mangione.
yeah. Luigi Mangione. Everyone's behind him for killing a guy. Not everyone, obviously, but there's a
Right.
small
Where's
minority of
the
people that
empathy for
support him.
the CEO, the father, the husband?
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
it feels kind of gross when people are celebrating that.
Yeah,
I think that's a respect for basic human dignity argument right there. Like,
and
it's
there needs
still a
to be
person.
more of that. I there needs to be a lot more of that.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably of all the things that Claude brought up that really needs to be stressed. And we would live in a better world if people respect basic human dignity more than they do, and they
Funny,
don't. And it
you would
also gets lost in Twitter.
you would think that AI would not want to have us do that.
Yeah. Well, this AI Claude, that's I think he's one of the good ones, one of the good
He's not
AIs.
not the Terminator.
No, no. I hope that if there's ever like AI wars, I hope that Claude's on our side and he just kicks the shit out of Skynet or Chat GPT. I have faith in him. I have faith in him. I think he's got our back for now, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Right. So that was a little dark. That was a little dark,
it was a little dark, but
but
it's a good conversation to have. There's talking points for that, and I think anyone could have this conversation. Anyone
everyone
can
should.
feel the depth of sorrow or not based upon their own perception, and it needs to be something you don't fake. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be something that you cheer and applaud, but it needs to be there. Needs to be that dignity line, and there needs to be some kind of respect. So, it was a good
Yeah.
conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to lighten it up a bit with the subject that we didn't have time to bring up to Mark? All right.
Yeah.
So I asked you guys for an example of someone that you would love to sit down and hang out with and have a drink with, whose worldview you disagree with, and also an example of somebody you wouldn't want to hang out with. They don't seem appealing to have a beer with, whose worldview you do agree with. Do you have an example of both?
I do.
Which one do you want to
I'll,
start with?
I'll start with someone I disagree with, or I agree with on worldview. And I don't know if I'm head on with this, but yeah, Randy Quaid is weird. Gary Busey. They're both Republicans. They're both conservatives. They both supported everyone I have ever supported.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't want to meet them. I don't want to have a beer with them.
Gary Busey or Randy Quaid? Because you're talking about like their tweets and the way they come across in
Yeah,
movies is just like
yeah,
they are kind of the same kind of insane,
yeah,
right?
they are.
They're two people to put together. That's good.
Yeah.
Also, side note, early days of YouTube, these like group of college kids put on a YouTube show. I forget the name of it, but the whole premise was one of them played Nick Nolte, one played Gary Busey, and one played Chris Christopherson, and they did pretty good impressions. And the premise of the show is they got tricked by a leprechaun into signing a 42-year lease on a house together, and it's just the adventures of them. It was so stupid, but it was funny. It was funny, man. Props to those guys. I'll find it and put a freaking link if it still
Put a
exists.
link on that one. Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah, I could
curious.
see that. I could see like, although I think I disagree with you with Gary Busey. It'd just be too damn interesting. It'd just be too
It
damn
would be
interesting.
interesting, but he, I think he'd be scary.
I think
So,
it'd be scary too. But Randy
yeah,
Quaid, I think that puts it over for me to where he'd be more scary than it'd be worth. It'd be interesting, but it'd
I
just be
feel
like,
like I feel like his cousin Eddie is spot on real life.
hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Christmas Vacation.
Of course, yeah, that's one of the best Christmas movies ever.
I
Yeah,
think he's. I think that he was not acting. I think that was real life.
Independence Day. That's
Or and
probably
that,
kind of like the
yeah,
yeah
yeah, drunk and flying in a plane and a crop duster. Yeah,
yeah the
I'm back.
that's a good choice. All right, so my choice, and it's not because I think he'd be a bad dude. It's Elon Musk
Okay.
because someone like that, I can't imagine sitting down with a beer with him. He could give two shits about a plebe like me. What it's and just the way that the guy's mind works. I can't imagine him having room for interpersonal niceties. I can't
I was
imagine it being
thinking
a good
about this
experience. No
this
disrespect to
topic
him.
earlier. No, I was thinking about this topic earlier, and that is one person I thought of that
Mm.
I don't know if I'd want to meet. It's a very good point, and it's I think he's top level brain, and I don't know if you get his full attention,
Yeah, yeah. It's just
or
it's
he
a
would care.
hardware issue with him,
Yeah,
right? It's just
yeah,
not no offense towards
yeah.
him, but that's my example there. What about the other way around? Who'd you pick?
So you may not know this. I know Mark is well aware, but I am a gigantic West Wing fan.
Yeah, I
The
knew that.
the popular you did okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
You said, and I quote, "I would love the chance to blow Martin Sheen." I remember you saying that. Yeah,
no, no, but every cast member of that show is hardcore left,
yeah.
and I would disagree with everything they say, but I would have a beer with every single one of them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a Democratic president in the show, right? That he plays, and he's a pretty
Yeah,
Democratic guy in the show.
yes,
Yeah, and I know. Oh, what's his face? What's that actor's name? Hardcore lefty. He was one of the bad guys in that Jordan Peele horror movie, Get Out. what is his name?
Bradley Whitford.
Yes, yes, him.
Okay.
I've seen him on Belmar. He's about as far left as possible, but he seems like a cool dude at the same time. Like he
Yeah,
legitimately
and he
does.
was in Billy Madison.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. He was the main bad dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other one is Richard Schiff. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He was in the West Wing as the senior communications director, but he was also in The Good Doctor. Have you watched any of that? He's a
no,
bald head,
I've heard of
bearded
it,
guy.
never seen it.
Great actor, fantastic actor, and you can see the honest empathy coming out of him, especially in The Good Doctor. Allison Janney is the press secretary. She is on Mom now. I don't know if you've seen that show. She's been
No,
on a bunch of movies and
I know
stuff.
who Allison Janney is, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
big time actress.
Rob Lowe.
Oh yeah, Rob
Yeah.
Lowe.
And
Rob Lowe
yeah.
had a buddy of mine who was a limousine driver to the stars. He said one of the worst people that he had to drive around in a limo was Rob Lowe's wife. Just a horrible, horrible person. But by all accounts, Rob Lowe himself is a super cool dude.
I could see that. Just Parks and Rec alone, it,
Yeah.
he seems like he's
I don't think you
chipper
could be a
all
piece
the
of
time.
shit and pull
Yeah,
that role off. I just don't think
yeah,
it's possible. I don't think
yeah.
it's possible. But no, those are all good examples.
So, I gotta.
I
Here's a.
Are those signed by everybody? Is that a
Yeah.
signed script?
Yep.
That's
Pilot
pretty cool.
episode. Yeah.
That's pretty
My wife.
cool.
My wife knows me pretty well.
That's
So
an awesome gift.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I would have a beer with every single one of them, and I would cry about one of the cast members that has passed away. So, um, yes, that's my answer.
Great example. Great example. Mine was less entertainment. So mine would be the author of The People's History of the United States, Howard Zinn.
I don't know who that is.
So for people that went through commie phases like me, there are two big names
Mm.
in the turning people in their late teens into commies. One is Howard Zinn, and the other is Noam Chomsky. And when you hear people talk about him, Noam Chomsky is just kind of a fucking dick. He's just a dick, right? But Howard Zinn apparently was super cool. He had people over to his house that he disagreed with. He would hang out. When he was interviewed, he would offer people drinks. People don't have bad experiences with Howard Zinn. Like he's dead now, but he was a actual legitimately cool person who wrote The People's History of the United States, which commified many, many people, hundreds of thousands, millions. Who fucking knows? But I think he'd be an interesting guy if he was still alive to sit down and talk with. Because disagree all you want, that's a hugely influential book, hugely influential. And just picking that guy's brain, especially when by all accounts he was cool, I think it'd be a good experience. Try to find common
What would
ground
you
with
ask him?
somebody like
First, if you had one question, what would you ask him?
that. When you were writing The People's History of the United States, did you look up opposition to the things that you believed in, or were you just going off of your
Mm,
preconceptions the whole time? How much time
that's
did
a
you
good question.
spend challenging your own views? Because I haven't read it since I was like 18 or something, but it seems like he didn't. It seemed like, okay, I have an agenda and I'm going to do a really good job in writing a book that supports my agenda. Yeah, and I don't. We've talked about that many times, and as much as I love Mark, one of the things I try to do when we talk to him is it's just sometimes he's been on that team for so long that I love it when he dials back and has more of a 30,000 foot view because he's too smart and too good at what he does to be an idea warrior or a culture warrior. And and that's what I think Howard Zinn did with that book, idea warrior shit. Which,
Nice.
hey man, that's what gets the views, that's what gets the clicks, but that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, good stuff. That was a little lighter. I appreciate that. Bringing it down.
Yes, yes, they can't all
We have
be
had
doom
some
and gloom.
dark ones. We've had darker ones than this, but there's been that was
We'll,
medium
we'll,
dark.
we'll top it. We'll top it. We'll get
Yeah.
even darker. Don't worry.
All
Don't
right.
worry. All right, man.
All right.
Good talking to you.